Welcome back, Science 7. Today we are going to finalize the control system, especially herbicides and pesticides. We're moving away from it. And last time, just a recalling, we talked about benefit and so pros and cons about using herbicide and pesticide. To be fair, more about the cons because humanity has been using pesticide and herbicide using dangerous chemical for a long time. Today we're gonna go through some of those alternate solution, which is known as biological control, ladies and gentlemen. Biological control. The way that biological control is used is basically we use or choose to use which color fit better? Red. Prey and predator situation. And I'm going to go through the example of biological control way more detail as time go. But long story short, we are introducing a natural predator to kill pest or weed, ladies and gentlemen. If it's natural predator for weeds, we need to introduce after researching which organism would love feeding on weeds and then introduce them. Or if it's insects, we are introducing other um, carnivores insects on the top part of the, how can I say, food chain. Compared to the pesticide or herbicides, first of all, this takes a longer time to control, but is one of the very successful method and it's eco-friendly. This part you may need to pause button time to time when I'm going through each of the lesson. You can find this PowerPoint in Google Class 2, so you can download it. Advantage, first of all, it's not expensive. It is in fact cheap. You sometimes need to introduce few eggs of that organism too. It has a good potential to be used permanently. It's not a short term or you need to worry about resistant gene effect in a population of the pests. It's not harmful to any type of non-target organism. For example, the wildflower will not gonna be affected if it's talking about killing weeds. You don't have any toxic chemicals, obvious reason. It's a living matter. Pests and weeds do not develop resistance against chemicals. And it's quite selective because certain predators like to eat certain prey. So that's why. There are disadvantages too. First one is it's not always work well. You may even find some situation where there is another predator of the predator. Controlling and managing can be quite challenging, especially if the population of predator increase a lot and cause different problem. That is also possible. And research costs a lot. It depends on what type of predator is required. You need to introduce exotic species, which is not recommended, but some people have done it. It's expensive to constantly manage the ecosystem of that environment. So, a good example that I like to give you is we have ladybug over here, and we have aphids. Aphids basically suck nutrients from plants, and that includes sugar too, glucose. But ladybug consume these aphids, and aphids population go down, which is really great condition for the plants. So this is one of the situation of enemies of an enemy is actually your ally. There's an old saying like that, and this is a perfect example because ladybug is the herbivore in that situation. The other example is, some of you may already know, praying mantis. And praying mantis is actually really a good insects to use for predator because they generally eat anything. In this specific example, as you can see, praying mantis eat dung flies. So dung flies are not good in some situation because they create lots of maggot during their reproductive season, and that makes, how can I say, decomposer role is important, but it just make the whole environment nasty and disgusting. Smells, ammonia, those kind of thing is not good. So sometimes those predators are introduced so that they can naturally clean up the area. A biological control can go wrong. This part is not given inside of your booklet, so please just focus on my lesson over here. Cane toad. I'm gonna tell you a story about this cane toad. Cane toad, like the word suggests, it was introduced to protect some of the crop against some of the insects, such as what you see over here, grayback beetles. Cane toads are introduced a lot in America so that they can protect sugarcane, and this involves South America too. But people thought, you know what, introducing a lot of cane toad is good because they eat grayback beetles, which feed on the sugar cane. So that's why we can maximize our yield. So that's win-win situation. This is where poor research create a huge ecological problem. Here's what happened. As you can see, there's a crocodile that feeds on cane toad, right? Now, the problem is, first of all, those freshwater crocodiles, they feed on cane toad. So, a lot of people naturally think, isn't that a good thing? Because crocodile can control the toad population. That's what people think. But in fact, this is where things went wrong because crocodile start to die a lot too. And scientists found the reason. Crocodiles start to die a lot, and then toad population went up more. And the main problem was because these cane toad, oops, there you go. These cane toad has a lot of poison in its body. So crocodile die up and other predator die up because this toad has too much poison in it, and that kill off all of the predator. So the funny thing happened in that field where you try to design to reduce the amount of beetles. Now they have lots of toad around that area, and we need to control these toad population because toad eat other than this grayback beetle. It eats other stuffs too. So there was domino effect. So, long story short, ladies and gentlemen, biological control can cause a lot of ecological problem if it is not monitored well or at the same time researched well. This is a little bit of a activity time that I'm going to show you. If you're a farmer who grows mustard plants and you're dealing with aphid pest, like the one that I introduced you, what method would you choose to maximize your yield? So to increase most of the crop productive outcome. What kind of method will you use? And I want you to also focus on pros and cons about it. So that means, will you choose pesticide? Will you choose biological control? Tell me good benefit and any harmful outcome that's gonna be predicted in that situation. So long story short, ladies and gentlemen, we gotta be careful about unintended consequences because even though we plan beforehand, the result that is happening in ecosystem is always not predicted. So this is where we're going to highlight some of those management issues. Environmental management is what I'm going to highlight. And this is available in your booklet again. Environmental management is a fancy way of saying we are balancing things between human needs and maintain ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen. So that means whatever the human needs that is happening, we are going to start with the planning as a first step. We got to plan our budget, economic perspective, environmental research, all of those we're going to do. And then from that plan, we're going to do some action, which is implementing. And third is basically monitor and managing step, which is over here. And then after that, if there's any more revision happening in environmental policy, then we need to start plan things ahead again. So these are like a life cycle of management to make sure our ecosystem run well with minimal human impact. So like what I said, policy designing is the planning example. Then implementation of that policy, regulation is going to be the next one by constantly monitoring, and we review the management, and we modify and make new policy if it's necessary. Modification of old policies generally what happen realistically, but sometimes new discovery happen. Like for example, global warming, DDT. Those two are different category, but those are relatively discovered in late 1900s to 2000 as a highlight. So have that in your mind. Forestry and agriculture, those are the ones that talk about a lot of policies because there are several things that, how can I say, disrupt ecosystem directly, and those are construction of the roads and noise from the vehicle. Construction of the road is one of the big part because in order to make the road, we are dividing their habitat like what you see over here. Instead of the one entire habitat, now there's two different habitat. We call this phenomena as fragmentation, ladies and gentlemen. And when it comes to fragmentation happen, then they are no longer have large range of their habitat. You are actually experiencing a serious habitat loss for organism. Then the funny thing happened. Deers cannot run away from predators sometimes, or predator in their habitat, they cannot find food. So some of the roadkill can happen also. Then, if that happens, we don't have variation. We call it reduction in biodiversity. Environment management system, however, does not limit to industries only. We talk about our daily life action too. So, as a last activity, here is what I want you to do. Imagine you're owner of a forestry company. In Alberta or British Columbia, any place that you can think of. And the government asks you to build some kind of environmental managed plan. What kind of action would you do or would you provide to the government as an owner of the company? I want you to think about three different plans and I want you to explain about that. That is today's lesson, and homework page will be shortly followed.